Are there free agent targets that fire you up as a Jazz fan? Maybe not. We'll look at the first look of free agency for the upcoming season for the Utah Jazz next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. Thanks so much for tuning into Locked on Jazz today. Here's what we got for you. We're going to look at free agency. Nate Duncan and the Dunked on Prime group has done a great job of correlating the free agents. I'm going to use his list, give him all the credit, and have him look at what's going on. We have points gained on a Thursday. We usually do it on Friday, but the FAQs, the Ask LOJs have been so good recently. I don't want to lose that third segment. So I'm going to do that tomorrow, but I'm going to do it with you the whole way through. So I have points gained, which is our offensive metric, and we will scan points gained on some of the players as well, and whether or not they're actually worth going to get in free agency. So we use points gained as a reference point there as well today. I am Dave. We'll go position by position as well. I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen. We are free, available on all podcasting apps as well as on YouTube. When you're driving around, just make sure you listen to your podcast here on Locked on Jazz on Spotify and Apple, wherever it is, but it's free and available for you. Glad to have you aboard. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked on Jazz today. And to the everydayers, you're the best. Greatly appreciate you. Today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. FanDuel, make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, let's start. Free agency, point guards. Okay, well, your first reactions, we have Keontae George. So this is, I think, the trickiest thing for the Utah Jazz, because by the time free agency hits on January 1st, or excuse me, on July 1st, I suspect we'll have a young center in Walker Kessler. We'll have a young power forward in Taylor Hendricks. We'll have a young wing player in whoever we just drafted. We'll have a young two-guard in Bryce Sensabaugh, and we'll have a young point guard in Keontae George. And anybody you sign that's significant, you are now blocking their route. Okay? I'm not too worried about that in the sense that I just think you got to go get talent and get players, and you deal with that. But that is, you have to consider it a little bit. So let's start with the point guards. The best point guard available on the free agency window is Tyrese Maxey. However, Tyrese Maxey is just 23 years old. He's a restricted free agent. He is an all-star. He's going to get a max contract from the Philadelphia 76ers, and he's not really going to be available. They have a bunch of cap money. There's no reason why they would make a mistake here and let him go. Daryl Morey is smart. So Tyrese Maxey is the best free agent, but is not going to be available. The next one's interesting. It's a player option. I would doubt he's going to take it, but it's Drew Holiday of Boston. And the reason why I think it's interesting is because he's 34 years old, and two, the Jazz have already made a run at him once. Now, I would assume Boston wants to re-sign him, but Boston's got massive cap issues, and if Boston doesn't win the title, that's going to be hard, even if Boston does win the title. But if Drew Holiday were to not take his player option and become a free agent, the Jazz could decide that we're trying to get better. Drew Holiday's perfect 2-year gap for us to be able to help Keontae George. Now, if Drew Holiday's just won a title 2 years ago, or been in the finals and just won a title, how you're going to get him to decide to come to Utah, I think is difficult. Drew Holiday's points gained is a 0.4, which is good for guards. He has a disturbing statistical number, which is he now goes to free throw line 4% of his possessions, which is a clear sign of aging. He is surviving this year because he's shooting 44% on threes. If he goes somewhere else, I don't think he'll have the same floor space. I doubt he would shoot 44% from three. And I suspect at 35 years old, 34 years old, that he would start to be inefficient. But it's just a name to put out there. It's a thought. I don't think it's likely, but these are hard. Emmanuel Quickly would be the next one. He got traded in the offseason from New York to Toronto. Toronto is losing every game on purpose right now because they're trying to get their draft pick. They're doing a really good job of it. Emmanuel Quickly is about even on his points gained. He's a 40% three-point shooter, and he's a major piece for the Raptors for the future, and he's a restricted free agent. And unless you're going to max him out to the point where you believe he's a superstar, which he's not, and do something crazy, Toronto's matching his salary. And maybe even then Toronto's matching. So he's, again, probably not that available. Those are the three starter level point guards, according to Nate Duncan, Dunked on Prime, and what Nate does. 3 start. Now, maybe that's fine for us because we have Keontae George, and so we're going to stay with that. Here are some of the other players. Okay, well, we do need a backup point guard. Right now, our backup point guard is Chris Dunn. And the best free agent point guards available as a backup point guard might be Chris Dunn. They are Kyle Lowry, 38 years old, probably not. Markelle Fultz in Orlando is interesting. He's still really skilled, but he doesn't shoot it. He's, struggled with shoulder impingement / yips at different times. He is falling out of the rotation there. He's a minus 1.7 points gained player, which is terrible. He goes to the free throw line 3% of his possessions. I just think the effort to try to make Markelle Fultz work probably has come to an end. Tyus Jones is really good. He's a borderline starting point guard. And Tyus Jones is a free agent at the end of the season. He takes care of the ball. He doesn't turn it over. He was terrific when he was in Memphis. He does a lot of things really, really well. So I think when you look at Tyus Jones, he's a average point gains player. Again, never goes to the free throw line, 2% of his possessions. He's a nice player. You might have to overpay for him, but you might also decide that Tyus Jones is a really, really good backup point guard to Keontae George. Chris Paul, non-guaranteed. Spencer Dinwiddie, who's with the Lakers right now, I don't think is interested in doing much other than sticking with the Lakers or a team. Chris Dunn, Monty Morris, who's bounced around a little bit, former Ute DeLon Wright, Cameron Payne, Jose Alvarado is a team option likely to be picked up by the Pelicans. And that's kind of it. So on the free agent point guards for the Utah Jazz, the next tier down, by the way, would be Kyra Lewis, Jason Preston, guys we already have, Jordan Davis, Killian Hayes, Malachi Flynn, Jacob Gilyard, Patty Mills, Derrick Rose, Jordan McLaughlin, who's not bad, Kobe Simmons, and Lonzo Ball, player option and injured. So on the point guards, from a point guard standpoint, there's the Drew Holiday scenario. I just think it'd be hard to talk Drew Holiday into coming to Utah. Not because of Utah, because of position and wins and where he is in his career. Chris Dunn or Tyus Jones is like kind of an answer. We know who Chris Dunn is. He's been fabulous to us. You might just decide that Chris Dunn is your answer. So not a lot of great answers in 2024 at the point guard position. 2025 does get a little interesting. Jalen Suggs becomes restricted. Jamal Murray gets out there. Alex Caruso will be 31 years old. Malcolm Brogdon. So, who knows? But I would say that's a pretty limited scope of players. We'll look at shooting guards, small forwards next as we continue here on Locked on Jazz. A early first look at free agents for the Utah Jazz in the offseason. Here, we're just getting started on Locked on Jazz. Thursday edition of Locked on Jazz. You can be listening. The nice, beautiful thing about podcasts is you can be listening to it anytime you want. But this was recorded on a Thursday. And the Thursday edition is brought to you by our friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Amazon Fire TV is pretty great. Amazon Fire TV is your destination for sports, live games, highlights, in-depth analysis, offering you a viewing experience with smart TVs as well as the Fire Stick. The Fire TV stick. I got it right here. I use the Fire TV stick. I haven't turned it on yet today. Turn it on right now. Get my Locked On Sports today. Fire TV provides access to millions of movies, TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend of baseball, college basketball tournament, you're going to you want to watch it on Fire TV right now. The Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels as well. These are constant supply of the latest videos from your latest sports brand, all for free, including Locked On Sports today. So go to Amazon, hit the Fire TV app like I just did on your Fire TV stick, and you get Fire TV channels, let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, more, keep you up to date in the latest world of March Madness, the rest, not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, news. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TVs, you should. So trust me, here you go. Go to Amazon.com/locked-on Fire TV. And I go to Fire TV today. Trending today is a news about Taiwan being hit by an earthquake, Stephen Diggs being traded, or Locked On women's basketball trending right there with the Angel Reese going pro. You can head down, you can get that. Plus, you can get all sorts of other news and sports, and you get Locked On Sports Today live. And as a San Francisco Giants fan, I come over here, I click on my team, I click Giants, and I get my latest on the Giants. But today I hit Padres, so I get the latest on the Padres, which I don't want. It's the Cardinals highlights. It's all at Fire TV. Go check it all out on Fire TV as for you. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel, get into the game, make every moment more. And right now we're making it even better for you. The sports calendar is absolutely loaded. So right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets you can use for the MLB, NBA, NHL, anything more. FanDuel.com/locked on. And boy, you do have choices right now of what you want to do with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Here you go for the NCAA tournament Final Four. Here are the lines. Purdue is a 9.5-point favorite over NC State. And Connecticut is an 11.5-point favorite over Alabama if you care about the men's game. In the women's game, South Carolina is an 11.5-point favorite over NC State. And Iowa, Connecticut is a 2.5-point line for Iowa on that one. You can do all sorts of things. You can bet Caitlin Clark points. Over-under is at 33.5. Paige Becker's points are at 26.5. All sorts of fun things. And the NBA odds for a championship right now, I kind of want to keep seeing if these are going to change at all. NBA Finals right now, championship. Boston is plus 170. Denver's plus 350. Clippers plus 750. Milwaukee's still plus 750, though. Doc Rivers is getting crushed. It's all at FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com/locked on. Get $200 in bonus bets. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. If you have not made the switch already, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. You're tired of people yelling and screaming at you about what's going on in the sports world. You've got ESPN and Fox on in the background all day. Well, then make the switch to Locked On Sports Today and get 24/7 national streaming channel with the local experts of Locked On, making all the biggest analysis, breakdowns, and the rest for you. It's on Amazon Fire TV. It's also streaming 24/7 on YouTube. It's Locked On Sports Today. All right, let's go to our shooting guards. And I'm going to put shooting guards and small forwards together. LeBron James and Paul George are the big names. They're both player options. They'll both activate. Paul George should be signed, though he hasn't, so that one's interesting. I really actually expected them to move Paul George at any point. Oh, Shohei went deep last night against my Giants. Oh, that's not good because my Amazon Fire is telling me that right now. James Harden is the next one. So none of those like star shooting guards or small forwards are going to be really interesting to us. There's 5 guys that are starter level players here that are interesting. DeAnthony Melton, I don't know if he's per se interesting. He's a very good defensive player. I think is, become a better and better offensive player and is a free agent, unrestricted. He's 26 years old. He's in Philadelphia right now. They have a lot of cap space. They're probably not going to re-sign him. They'll probably try to use somebody else to use that money in. He's not a great points gained player. He's a minus 0.9. He's really known as a defensive star. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in Denver is there for a player option. Now, that could be interesting. He could really bring some veteran moxie, make you understand a little bit of like what it is to be a champion. and those kind of things. But again, is that where Pope wants to go at this point in his career to make those decisions and do those kind of things? Those are the two shooting guard starters. OG Anunoby, who was traded to New York, player option. He's probably going to not pick up that player option. And then along the way, he ends up, I'm pretty certain that they will sign him. So that leaves one of the more interesting players to me. And it kind of fits on the Drew Holiday end of things. And the word on everyone is that Chicago is going to re-sign him. But DeMar DeRozan is 34 years old, kind of an offensive stud still. He's points gained is even. He takes a lot of possessions. He'd take a huge burden off everybody. He's 34 years old. Like, would you sign DeMar DeRozan for 2 years to a lot of money to be able to just be average, but have him be around to take the burden off of your other players when they're developing? And then DeMar and Lowry are your two best offensive players. You don't have a top 20 player in the NBA, but you've got two guys that can really get at it. DeMar still goes to the free throw line 16% of times, doesn't shoot threes, plays the mid-range all the time. That is what it is. But DeMar DeRozan and Drew Holiday are the two guys at 34 years old that are free agents. And are you interested in them to be kind of a guiding force for your team, take the burden off your guys? We're seeing right now that when you just don't have talent, it's brutally difficult on your players. And so how much do you want to just like relieve them? We can talk about whether it takes, them away or not. The next tier of players, Klay Thompson is also a free agent. I don't think that's one the Jazz are heading down. The next tier of players are some starters, some borderline starters, some borderline. I actually think a bunch of these guys are starters, and a bunch of them are interesting. You're going to have to pay an awful lot for them. You're probably going to have to pay more than what they are, but they're worth talking about because they're good. So Indiana's Buddy Hield, who Indiana traded for. Probably not with, I don't know what their intention on keeping Buddy Hield is. Indiana traded Buddy Hield at the trade deadline. He's 31 years old. He is still a great shooter. He is not a scheme player from everything that we've kind of been told about him over the years. And, but he can really, really shoot it. So that would be, we need shooting. Frankly, that would be one of the biggest things I would say is that we really need shooting. Buddy Hield's an even points game player. Malik Monk will win Sixth Man of the Year and is a free agent. Sacramento wants to re-sign him in every possible way, but he is available. Is he looking for a larger role? How good is he at this point in his career? Monk he's a below average points game player, right about even. Big time shooter, shooting 35% from three, bombs it up there, but he's not particularly efficient. Gary Trent Jr. has been kind of bantied about time and time again. He's still only 25 years old. He's another dead-eye shooter, 40% from three, takes 50% of his possessions as threes. He's a free agent. Grayson Allen is a free agent. He is having a monster year, absolutely a plus 2.1 on his points gained, one of the best most efficient offensive players in the league, shooting 47% from three. Phoenix almost has to re-sign him, but he has them over a barrel. So if somebody else offers a bunch of money, they may not want to do anything with him. A bunch of team option guys. Isaiah Joe, I would guess that Oklahoma City will re-sign him. Luke Kennard, who's just kind of gone into the Netherlands. It was always a really nice player. Seemed like he was always going to be a great addition. Got traded at trade deadlines. Still a very positive points gain player. I'm still a fan. Shoots 45% from three this year in 25 minutes of action. Has played limited. His injuries are a problem. He's a team option. It'll be interesting to see if he's let go. So if we want some shooting, Buddy Hield, Malik Monk, Gary Trent Jr. Monk's not as good as you. Grayson Allen are out there. Veteran Gary Harris, who somehow Gary Harris is not 38 years old. Isaiah Joe, I think will get picked up. Luke Kennard, I suspect, would not be picked up on a team option. Gary Payton II is a player option. He's now 31, and Evan Fournier out there. So those are the shooting guards. Here's some other names that are a little interesting, but probably a little less interesting. Caleb Martin. And Martin's interesting, I think, in the sense that, well, first of all, Cody and Caleb's been in Miami. He's not an efficient player. He's a minus 0.8 points game player, but he's been in Miami, so he knows how to play. He's a player option, I'm not sure the number on it. Royce O'Neal's a free agent. Phoenix, again, in a total bind, has to re-sign these players. They have no cap space. They have nothing. They can only re-sign their own players. Royce has avaliable. Gordon Hayward, 34-year-old free agent. I do not think we'll have much of a market. Oklahoma City is not going to pay him. He actually wants talking to him. He loves Charlotte. He's become a below average points game player. His body's just not right. But he's 30 and he's 34, but he is a pro. He does know how to play. He could relieve the burden. He actually could be someone who might be content with being a sixth man. There's actually some really good arguments of why Gordon Hayward would be a nice addition to where the Utah Jazz are, and versatility, play with the ball, do all sorts of things for the Jazz. Cedi Osman, who we just saw the other night in San Antonio, will probably not be re-signed. He's a free agent. He's a 39% three-point shooter, bench player. Najee Marshall in New Orleans, and Doug McDermott. So there's a bunch of like rotation, decent shooters that actually I think could be nice additions to the Utah Jazz there. Restricted free agent Isaac Okoro, Aaron Wiggins, Oklahoma City, Sadiq Bey in Atlanta. All I think will be interesting there. There's a bunch of kind of non-rotation NBA players. I'll just mention them. You can decide if you are excited about him. Talon, Horton-Tucker, Victor Oladipo, Reggie Bullock, Jordan Nwora, Garrison Matthews, pretty good shooter, team option. Edmund Summer, RJ Hampton, Garrett Temple, Shaq Harrison, PJ Dozier, Joe Harris, Daniel House, Daquan Jeffries. No, you're not. Okay, I got it. None of them work. So in the shooting guard and in the small forward world, there are some interesting names there. Buddy Hield, Malik Monk, Gary Trent Jr., Grayson Allen, Isaiah Joe, if he became available. I don't think he will. Luke Kennard, Gordon Hayward, Cedi Osman, maybe Royce O'Neal again. None of them really roster moves, but ways to add some depth to your roster that might be able to make lessen the burden a little bit. We'll look at forwards and centers as we continue here on the first free agent look of for Locked On Jazz here on the NBA season. Today's show is brought to you in part by Robinhood Retirement, robinhood.com/boost. So, you know about 401ks. That's where hopefully you work for a company. You put your 401k and they match it. It stays tax-free. You actually can still have an IRA if you have a 401k, and Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you're transferring from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on a 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most of your retirement thanks to the IRA with a 3% match. The offer is good through April 30th. So get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees do apply. And now I got to give you some legal information. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year, and for up to date of first 3% match must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years with 3% matching on transfers is subject to terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker dealer. Robinhood.com/boost. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Greatly appreciated. Jazz Clippers tomorrow, available on SiriusXM, as well as UtahJazz.com or app. By the way, our guy Lawrence Scott is working on a really cool thing and trying to get it so you can listen to the broadcast while you're in the state arena with no latency. He's actually figured it out. So if this is something you're interested in, you should let the Jazz know, because he's working really hard on it. Now we need the execs to say, yeah, that's cool. We should do that. All right. So super cool. Thank you. By the way, ask LOJ tomorrow. So send me a tweet X at DLock09, email dlock@gmail.com if you have a question for tomorrow's show. They're all your questions tomorrow. All right. Power forwards, which really kind of fall into small forwards, and centers. There's actually some players here. Miles, the one star is Pascal Siakam. Indiana's going to re-sign him. That's why they traded for him. Starters, Miles Bridges, 26 years old, and major sexual charges against him, domestic violence charges. He's playing in Charlotte. Charlotte was going to trade him at the trade deadline from every indication everywhere, and then they pulled back. The new owner didn't want to make the deal, which leads me to believe they're going to be willing to re-sign him. They've already paid I don't know the right way to say this. All right, so this is just being truthful. They've paid the PR capital already, and so they can actually move forward where somebody else has to take the PR hit for signing Miles Bridges, and they've already done it. If they re-sign Miles Bridges, everyone's already had their, I think, say on that one. So they probably are the team that, considering his background, any other team that signs Miles Bridges will have to hold a press conference to explain it. And the answer will be that they are giving him a second chance. He's paid his penalty, and he's really good. And that they went for him. So Miles Bridges is a possibility. He's 26. He's probably honestly the best available free agent on the market this year. Like, of the Tyrese Maxey's really not that available. LeBron James, Paul George, Pascal Siakam's not that available. Miles Bridges, OG Anunoby's not really available. Miles Bridges is the best available free agent on the market. Tobias Harris is 31. Philadelphia could move on from him if they have something up their sleeve. If they don't, they'll have to re-sign him. Again, Tobias Harris would be a pretty good player at 31 years old who could relieve the burden on a bunch of our guys. I'm big into this. I'm watching our guys get overstretched right now. I also think, we probably need to do something, or else we're going to end up with this lineup to start next year if we're not careful. We do have John Collins and Lauri Markkanen back, so yes, it would not be quite this, and Jordan Clarkson. But from a free agent standpoint, are you interested in doing this? Tobias Harris is a average points gain player with high volume, which is pretty good. He doesn't shoot as many threes as he used to, and he's shooting 35% on them. He's kind of moved into the mid-range recently. Simone Fontecchio is actually one of the higher, better free agents at this level. They're clearly going to re-sign, and that's why they traded for him, and they save a bunch of money in doing it. So here's some rotation power forwards. This did not move my meter at all. We're going to run through this fast. I don't have a guy I'm going to stop on. 35-year-old Nicholas Batum, 30-year-old Kyle Anderson, 27-year-old Haywood Highsmith, Robert Covington, 33, Jayshawn Tate, team option, Bol, Jalen Smith, I actually like player option a little bit. KJ Martin, Danilo Gallinari, Patrick Williams is restricted free agent in Chicago. Maybe if you want to take a flyer, but he hasn't shown it yet. Sam Hauser in Boston's a team option. Obi Toppin. That's it. Like, fringe rotation player, power forwards. Lukas Samanic is in the group with Davis Bertans, Marcus Morris Sr., PJ Tucker, Micah Potter. Nothing. So Taylor Hendricks, it's yours, baby. Taylor Hendricks, John Collins, you're your power forwards. It's interesting. I have a theory on John Collins I'm going to share. I got to test it out with a few people. But I have a theory on John Collins that I actually understand how to play John Collins now, which I didn't use, and I've had a hard time with all year and what he can do. But Taylor Hendricks, John Collins, Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, kind of the 3-4, we're probably set there and not looking for anything. And thank goodness, because there really isn't anything unless we were trying to go to Tobias Harris in that realm. Or you're playing the Miles Bridges game, which at 25, 26 years old, you can discuss amongst yourselves whether, he's paid his penalty, whether you think you want to be the place where he gets the next chance. Centers, Nicholas Claxton and Isaiah Hartenstein are both free agents. It's really Walker Kessler. Like, I think Walker Kessler and Nick Claxton is actually the best comp you probably could have. And so hopefully Walker does the natural thing from year 2 to 3 next year and progresses and heads in that direction. So I don't think there's any reason to do that. Backup center, we probably have our backup center. I think John Collins really could play center pretty well. I also think John Collins might be better the more he plays with stretch players, which is kind of my theory, but we'll talk about that a little bit as a 4. The other one, Jonas Valanciunas, Kelly Olynyk, Toronto re-signed, extended him. Andre Drummond, Gogo Bakazi, Xavier Tillman, who I'm not as big a fan of, Daniel Tice, Luke Cornett. So there's not like a lot there. On the big guys, it's really, really pretty empty on the free agency side of things. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of a kind of idea of what the market is. And it's not a market that's going to move the meter and get you a bunch of wins. It is the market that might be able to get you some players that relieve the burden on our younger players. But frankly, can Jordan Clarkson do that? Can John Collins do that? Can Colin Sexton do that? Can Lauri Markkanen do that? Maybe we already have those guys, and you're just trying to find some more depth in that regard. Also, it depends who we move. All right, points gained on a Thursday. We're heading down the stretch. As for those who've done this with us for a long time, point gains is my offensive metric in which we look at the offensive players on their scoring opportunities per night and how many points they score above league average. So in other words, Joel Embiid has 27 scoring opportunities a night. He scores 3.5 points more than average players would with those 27 points per night. That gives him a 3.5 points per gained per night. That's the best in the NBA. We usually have 3 players over 3 and 10 players over 2. What's interesting about this is on a year in which the offense is supposedly exploding, we only have 2 players over 2, and we only have another 2 players over 3, and only another 7 players over 2. So we're actually right where we always are. Here they are. Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo are both over 3. 3.5 and 3.4. Both should be discussed if Joel had been there for the whole season. As MVP, Milwaukee is 14 and 14 under Doc Rivers, so that's not great. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, unbelievable, 2.7 as a guard. Nikola Jokic, 2.7. Kevin Durant, 2.3. Daniel Gafford, 2.2. Can't imagine why Dallas has gotten way better. Grayson Allen, 2.1. Jared Allen, 2.1. And Luka Doncic, 2.0. So Dallas has 2 guys who are over 2. Phoenix does 2. It's interesting. Next tier, Kristaps Porzingis, 1.9. LeBron, incredibly at his age, 1.9. Domantas Sabonis, 1.9. Lowry, 1.9. Rudy Gobert, 1.9. Nick Richards and Mark Williams, 1.8. It's easier for a center. Derek Lively. Kawhi Leonard, 1.7. Karl Anthony Towns, 1.7. Jalen Durlin, Detroit. Jalen Smith, 1.6, who is a free agent, hasn't played a lot this year, but that's an interesting name. You want to see if you can force Indiana's meter and make them not make a move. Zubac, 1.6. Mo Wagner, 1.5, who I do really like and would be seriously interested in trying to acquire. Not a great defensive player, but could play stretch 5. And I think a stretch 5 with John Collins might be really neat. Let John Collins play the 4 and have him play stretch 5. He's not gotten to do that with Clint Capella and Walker Kessler. Zion Williamson, 1.5. Jimmy Butler, 1.5. Anthony Davis, 1.5. Chet Holmgren, 1.4. Devin Booker, 1.4. Obi Toppin, who we mentioned in Indiana, 1.4. Or no, we did Obi Toppin a free agent? Who was it that I'm thinking was? Yeah, Obi Toppin's restricted free agent. Steph is down to 1.4, which is just a major dive for him. Jason Tatum, 1.2. Paul George, 1.1. Who are the least efficient offensive players in the NBA for the season? Got Scoot Henderson, minus 2.8. Cody Martin, Charlotte, minus 2.0. Jordan Clarkson, minus 2.0. Jordan Poole, minus 1.8. Karis LeVert, minus 1.7. Wasn't against us the other night. Markelle Fultz, we just talked about, minus 1.7. Shaedon Sharpe, minus 1.7. Evan Fournier, minus 1.7. Killian Hayes, minus 1.5. Free agent Talon, minus 1.5. Jeremy Shuhan, minus 1.5. Russell Westbrook, and Nikola Vucevic. Finally, your Utah Jazz points gained at this point of the season. Lauri Markkanen, 1.9, which we talked about. It's great. Walker, 1.0. Super Colin, 1.0. Amazing for a guard. John Collins, 1.0. Really good. Micah Potter, 0.6. Taylor Hendricks, minus 0.2, which is nice for a rookie. Chris Dunn, minus 0.4. Johnny Juzang, minus 0.3. Keontae George, minus 1.2. Taylor Horton-Tucker, minus 1.5. Jordan Clarkson, minus 2.0. That is Locked on Jazz today. Tomorrow, it is points gained. You telling me, tomorrow it is Ask LOJ, you telling me all the questions you have about your Utah Jazz. We're doing that tomorrow on Locked on Jazz, so stay with us. In the meantime, we now send you the first ever 24/7 national streaming channel. Make the switch to Locked on Sports today on Amazon Fire or on YouTube 24/7.